Cue it whenever you're ready.
Okay. Woo. 3, 2, 1. Hello, welcome to Get Your Money Right podcast. I'm Sarah.
Hey, Sarah. I am Amanda, and this podcast is brought to you by Forward Motion. Check the hat, Forward Motion. Our mission is creating generational prosperity, one family at a time. And we do that through financial empowerment, education, and career development education. We touch on a lot of topics on this podcast. Everything connects with getting your money right. So we've got a solid episode for you today, but before we jump in.
Yeah, so here comes me with my fun fact information time.
Yeah.
All right, so did you know it is illegal to own only one guinea pig in Switzerland? You have to purchase two because they are an animal that needs companionship and company. And so the country does not allow you to purchase less than two at a time.
So I didn't know that. And I love it.
Isn't it cute?
And all of these, our American guinea pig owners, I think it's time for us to really
We need to make a change.
Make a change and think about if you have a solo guinea pig, they're probably sad.
They're probably sad. The wheel is not enough.
Yeah, and they need a friend.
Maybe this is why guinea pigs in America have such short lifespans. I don't know.
Yeah. Don't they? They do though, don't they?
I feel like they die all the time, right?
People are always
like, oh, my hamster died, or yeah, my guinea pig died. Well, I will say that is the rule at most like feed stores for baby chicks. Can't just buy one. Usually you have to buy two or more.
Oh, yeah. It says according to Backrub, 5 to 7 years is the lifespan of a guinea pig. The lifespan is longer than many other small pets, such as hamsters, gerbils, mice, or rats, all of whom live up to a few years only. Okay.
All right.
Not the pet for me.
Yeah, I just felt like
that's not the pet for me.
No, not the pet for me either. That's kind of sad, but
yeah.
If it is the pet for you, make it a pet for two. All right, I have another one. This one I thought was kind of cool. So people are more creative in the shower.
Yep.
Than you are like just at work or in your car or anything else. The reason for that is, one, the shower provides a safe and relaxed or calming space.
Mm-hmm.
It also relieves endorphins, the same that like exercise or music or things like that.
It makes sense. It makes sense also because like there's like a level of clarity and focus in the shower because like you're not multitasking. Like you're kind of doing what you're doing. Now I wonder,
showering it up.
I think of like, is there a market for like in shower whiteboards or
like a mic, like a recorder, like
like a note taker? Like if you're very creative in the shower, are we losing a level of creativity to non-written down or recorded shower thoughts?
I think we need to take this one offline because we may be divulging
patent pending
$1 idea. Yep.
Patent pending, y'all. Calm down. Get your
What would we call that?
Ooh. Let's come up with a quick name. Okay, so what will we call it?
Shower thinker.
Huh? What'd you say?
I said shower thinker. That's not good. That was bad.
Shower thoughts, shower power, power thoughts, thoughts of the shower, shower,
I like shower thoughts.
shower thoughts. Shower us with your thoughts could be our slogan. That's what's on the box. All right, again, patent pending. So let's just calm down, guys.
So,
this isn't, don't start taking notes yet.
That's all I had for today's episode.
I love it.
So.
Well, so we learned a couple of things. Everything, many animals need companionship. Guinea pigs are no different. So if you are going to have a pet of a guinea pig, as Sarah said, make it a pet for two. And also write down those shower thoughts. You might be having $1 million thoughts while you're lathering your hair, and we're losing them. We're losing them to the drain.
Wasted thoughts down the drain.
Don't be insane and let your thoughts go down the drain. Get shower thoughts where we turn your shower thoughts.
Your thoughts into a reality.
Where your thoughts into a reality. Working on the commercial. Boy. So you know what? I think this loosely kind of lends into what we're talking about today.
Right? It does.
Yeah, today we're talking about starting where you are. So our main topic today is, there's a thought process or a thought block, I think, that we get into as humans. I hear it all the time. I hear it with individual clients and just individuals in general, in workshops and things like that, where people really have this block of, I'll start when, right? I'll start when I hit this certain level. When I'm making 6 figures, I'm going to start investing. When I buy my own home, then I'm going to start a garden. It's always like, I'll start when. And I've always loved the saying of tomorrow never comes. But I found a quote in my reading and research for this episode where it's an Arthur Ashe quote. So Arthur Ashe is a 3-time Grand Slam winner. So he's in the Hall of Fame for tennis. He was born in 1943 in Richmond, Virginia. And this is potentially, or possibly one of his most famous quotes, but it is, start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. And, I think there's something to be said. I chose this quote because I think there's something to be said about, someone like Arthur Ashe. Even if you're not a tennis fan, you didn't follow his career, or you don't, kind of have a big knowledge base on him. I think it's safe to say that him being a Black tennis player born in 1943 in Richmond, Virginia, he probably experienced some challenge growing up, right? That era, that time frame, the sport that he chose. But one of the quotes that he's famous for being known for is, start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can, right? And I think the idea that, like, tomorrow, it never comes, and we lose a lot of great ideas to the shower drain, right? Because we're waiting until this happens, until I'm ready here. And so, I know we kind of jammed on this like last week when we were just kind of talking about it in general, and there are a lot of different areas where this is reality. But what comes to mind for you when we talk about, or when you first think about starting where you are, and not letting the lack of, whether it's knowledge or tools or whatever it might be, stop you from starting?
Yeah, I think we did talk a lot about this, and there's a few, like, so many different areas in your life I feel like this can apply to.
Yeah.
I think we talked about education, planning for retirement, starting, meditation,
Mhm.
getting your mental health together, um, personal growth, so many things. Um, and I think it's really easy for people to say, oh, I'm going to start that one, just like you said. I'm going to start that when I have more time, when I have more money. But what are you doing in order to get to the ability to have that more time and have that more money? Like this is part of getting there.
Yeah.
I think it's scary, a lot of times it's fear.
Yeah, I
Um,
think it's probably mostly fear,
yeah.
right?
And then fear because of knowing and not knowing, of knowing that you're going to have to make a sacrifice and that's going to be hard, of not knowing how long you're going to have to make that sacrifice to see the benefits or to get to the
Yeah.
outcome that you want. Um, so I think, those are kind of always the things that kind of prevent us from starting.
I love I love that you just said, and I'm just looking something up really quick. I love that you just said it's the fear of knowing and not knowing. There's a saying, and I paraphrase it typically, but I was looking it up so I could kind of try and share it correctly. Um, so if you say better the devil you know, or better the devil you know than the devil you don't know, you mean that you would prefer to have contact with or do business with a person you already know, even though you don't like them, rather than a person that you don't know. So this is like a British saying, and it's also been kind of adopted in reality, in not just doing business. I learned this term, and I used to use it actually, when I was in sales. And because there's a fear of change that's inherent, and you can be doing something that's not working for you, right? It's not reaping the benefit that you want. It's not giving you the return, on investment, and whether that investment is time, whether that investment is energy, whether that investment is your spirit, your soul, whatever it is. It may not be reaping you the return that you want, but the fear of doing something different is scarier than the comfort of continuing to do what is not for you. And so we have, as humans, a tendency to just continue to do the thing that's not working and not getting us the results that we want, because of that fear of doing something different. So I love the way you put that, Sarah, of it's a fear of knowing and not knowing, right? Like, I know that I'm going to have to make a change. I know it's going to be different, but I don't know exactly what it's going to look like. And so,
Yeah. I
just
mean,
leave
and
it
it
leave it
can,
away for me. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, they feel like that can be so simple and it can be so big. This can be something as simple as I want to start to exercise more, which actually can be really big for some people. So I don't
Mhm.
want to downplay that. Or, just picking up some kind of a healthy habit to like planning to get a promotion or get to a different level in your job or your career or owning a business or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think it's also just kind of, I don't know, I was reading up on it a little bit and just found some things that people kind of say are like good to like do like steps to do while you're trying to get to those goals or make a start in anything, whether it's a habit you're trying to change or
Yeah.
up or whatever. um and one of the biggest things I think is to just be realistic, because
Hmm.
people make these, even if you're, and I don't mean not to like have a big dream
Yeah.
or have big goals, but just make attaining those goals realistic.
Uh-huh.
And we've talked about this in other podcasts or in our other episodes as well,
Yeah.
a little bit. Just, but you know, if your goal is that you want to start getting more connected, with your spiritual self, whether that means, or mental and spiritual, whether that means
Mhm.
you want to start doing yoga, you want to start meditating, or you want to start seeing a counselor.
The Get Your Money Right podcast is brought to you by Forward Motion. At Forward Motion, our mission is creating generational prosperity one family at a time. You can learn more at forwardmotionaz.org. We're a nonprofit organization, so to support our cause, you can make a donation at forwardmotionaz.org/donate. Again, forwardmotionaz.org/donate. Now, back to the show.
Counselor. Maybe not saying you're going to do this every day or every week, but finding specific time every other week that you are able to commit to this and starting there, so it's kind of like small things like that.
Yeah, man. So there's a book. This book has been taken, and, read, reread, interpreted, reinterpreted. There are, so many other people who have created books that are loosely or even very hardly based on this book. The book's called The Compound Effect, and it's by Darren Hardy. And the compound effect is, so this is a formula, folks. So write this down, right? Small, smart steps repeated over time equals success, right? So small actions plus time, small actions repeated plus time equals success, right? And I always say success is boring. When it's funny, like doing this podcast is super fun, right? When you're on it, it's fun. But the effort and everything that goes into building it, though very rewarding, it's kind of mundane, right? There's research, there's reading, there's writing outlines and things like that. Things that it's like, oh man, I thought when I work for myself or when I do something, different, no one's going to tell me, what time I need to show up to work. And it's like, no, they're not going to tell you, but you're going to tell you. Right. And so, success is boring. So that's an Amanda idiom, write it down, put it somewhere. But so small, smart choices plus consistency plus time equals success or a radical difference. Mm-hmm. That's the compound effect. And there is an example. There's an example in the book, and it goes into quite a bit of detail, but it talks about, there were two different people, right? There was two friends, and they were both going to start a health journey. And one friend, really wanted to focus on like intensity, right? And is like, I'm changing my whole diet. I'm not eating any of this. I'm getting up every single day. I'm gonna, do pedal to the metal, right? And so that's kind of the thought process. On the flip side, it was like, okay, well, this other person said, well, I'm gonna get up every day and I'm gonna go for a 1 mile walk, whatever it is. The intense friend ran out of steam, right? Month 2. And it was like, this is too much. It was too radical. There were too many changes and it's not sustainable, and stopped. Now a year goes by, right? 365 days. The friend who made a small, smart choice was able to continually repeat that 1 mile walk, get up in the morning, walk for, a few blocks around my neighborhood, come home, and then go about my day. This friend ended up having a radical health change, right? While it's like, okay, well, if the other person would have been able to keep up that big radical change, yeah, they probably would have, far surpassed the other. But the reality is that that's not, and I'm like totally paraphrasing this story. So if you read the book, read it. This is what I got from it. But the one friend who decided to do things simply, consistently, and on a arguably a smaller scale, was actually able to do it consistently and and therefore was able to get it done. There's another book called Atomic Habits, right? And it talks about getting 1% better every day, right? You don't have to flip your whole life on its head. You just want to be 1% better every day. And that's where, starting where you are, kind of comes from. And when,
yeah, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Part of what you were saying kind of reminds me of, about the book that you were talking about, the compound effect. It's like, you don't have to have, it's not an all or nothing attitude when you're coming into, starting somewhere, whatever the journey is that you're trying to start. It's not like I'm going to do it all right now perfectly this time and I'm going to put 1,000% effort in it. It's okay, this is where I want to get to. What can I contribute to that goal right now?
Mm-hmm.
And starting there, and then it slowly compounds as it's almost natural. Like, you just slowly start being able to do more, make more progress because you have started.
Yep. Because once I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I'm going to look up this quote. It's a magnet I have on my fridge, but I don't want to go run in there. And I feel like it goes really good, but
cool. So when you think about it, you have the person who, decides to take a walk every day. What's going to happen? So that you walk a mile every day, and then you're going to start having more energy, right? You're going to start feeling a little bit better. And then you're going to, probably make smaller, smarter choices with what you're eating. Then you're going to say, man, I have all of this energy. I walked a mile, I'm just going to keep going a little for today. Right. And little bit by little bit, that small choice that you're making begins to turn more and more and more into positive outcomes. And I think it also, so did you find your quote?
No, I think it's by Eleanor Roosevelt, and I think it's something like the way to begin is to begin. It's something very simple like that, and I don't want to misquote her. And I'm having a hard time on my phone.
Well, after the show, we can put it in the show notes.
Well, and I just feel like, it's so true. There's no way to ever start or get somewhere if you don't take that first step. And
if you always wait until the time is right, you're very rarely going to actually do anything, right? Man, that's so true. And I think it also leads, really well into just doing what you said you were going to do, even when you have limited funds, limited time. Because like, if you're not doing and stewarding or conducting or handling your money, your time, your energy, your spirit, if you're not doing that well, when you're not on the mountaintop, the chances of you beginning, but when you get to the mountaintop are really, really low. And so I actually wrote a blog post last month, and it's called How Slowing Down Helps You Go Farther. And I want to read a little excerpt from it, and I'll put the link in the notes as well. But so it's talking about how kind of making small choices or small changes and kind of slowing down, how it's been linked to better decision making, more effectiveness, more productiveness. And so I'll give you an example. So you may have seen a meme like this, and what it is it's like, it's the $1 million morning, right? And it's like 5 a.m. wake up, 5:30 exercise, 6 a.m. shower, 6:15 meditate, 6:30 read, 7 a.m. breakfast, 7:15 set 3 goals, 7:20 work. So
that's a lot.
It's a lot. It sounds like a lot, right? But if you think about it also, no matter how many of these that you see and how many like articles that you read and a lot of interviews with whether they're, real estate moguls or CEOs or small business owners. One of the like two of the things that I have seen over and over and over is meditation and reading. Now, the meditate, it's 6:15 meditate, right? So you take a shower at 6 in the morning, and or whatever time, right? You take your shower, and then 15-20 minutes later, you take 15 minutes to meditate. Now, there is a quote, there is a quote about meditation, and I'm gonna find it, but you take like 15 minutes to meditate, and then the reading, it's 6:30 read to 7 o'clock, so it's a half hour of reading. Whether it's 30 minutes, whether it's 20 minutes, whether it's 15 minutes of reading. So these are both things that are slowing you down, right? But you can imagine that if you meditate for 15 minutes a day, every day, you're going to be a lot more grounded, connected with yourself, a lot more clear-headed, right? If you read for 30 minutes a day, you know how many books that is over the course?
Do you know how much time you spend scrolling on social media? Any form, any platform of it, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Google. I have tried to make it, and it's not actually I'm still on an electronic device, but it does go into like dark mode, and I'm reading. So like when I lay down at night, I have started to try to not sit there and scroll and do whatever. That's I'm going to read for my 10 or 15 minutes. It's not the whole 30, but sometimes depending on how good the reading is or the book,
going,
I might, take a few extra minutes, but I have found that has helped me because I have, busy mind, stress, anxieties, like everybody.
Well, you have a high stress job. You have a very demanding, you work in a very demanding field in healthcare, right? And so finding that time for yourself is,
and finding the ability, like you said, for my brain to just slow down and shut off. So I have started making that kind of something that I do at least a few times a week, if not every night before I'm going to bed during the week.
Yeah.
So just kind of trying to make those small changes.
Yeah. And there are small habits, right? Reading, meditating, taking 10 minutes to offload your thoughts in a journal entry before you go to bed, right? Keeping a notebook on your bedside table so that when you have an idea or a thought that you're so scared you don't want to lose it, you don't pick up your phone and get that blue light going in your face again at night. You can write it down real quickly, and now it's out of your mind. You can set aside, sitting down and writing 3 goals for the day every day, and that can be a 45-second, a 2-minute exercise, but it's about stewarding your time really well, no matter what level of your life that you're in, because these are habits that you want to grow now and to nurture now, because as you get more successful, or as you get more responsibility, as you get further in your career, or further in your business, or further in your financial journey, or your personal life, or whatever it is, you're not going to get less busy, at least not for a while, right? You're not going to get less busy. And so you have to be really cognizant and really directed or determined. The word I'm looking for is
focused.
You have to be really, we'll use focus. I can't think of the word. For some reason it's escaping me, but you have to be really specific with and diligent with your time and your energy, and getting those practices in early. There's a quote, and it says it's something along the lines of you should meditate for 20 minutes every day, unless you're too busy. Then you should sit for an hour, right? If you're too busy, to find 20 minutes a day to be with yourself and to meditate, then you need to meditate for an hour, right? Because our priorities are probably a little bit wonky, and we're probably living in a high stress body at the time, right? So I've always loved that quote, because I'll try and convince myself sometimes in the morning when, I get up and I'm like, okay, I've got all these things to do. I need to sit down and meditate for a few minutes. I'm like, I don't have time for that. Whoa. Okay.
Gotta make time for that.
I gotta make time for that. Right.
This podcast has been brought to you by Forward Motion. Our mission is to create generational prosperity one family at a time. Visit us at forwardmotionaz.org, on Instagram at forwardmotionaz, or on YouTube at Moving Forward One Family at a Time.
Time for that, right? And one of the things that I hear a lot, especially with working with like individual coaching clients, because when it comes to financial coaching, when it comes to kind of that journey, there's so much that goes into it besides the money piece. And one of the things that I hear quite a bit is, I can't meditate because I can't sit still for 5 minutes, or I can't turn my brain off, or I can't stop thinking, or it's just not my thing. So I kind of challenge folks, with, information like a joint study on meditation and how it affects areas of the brain responsible for decision-making and thought processing. So helping you think better and be more effective, right? So I'm reading again from my blog post. So it found that initial results suggest that meditation may be associated with structural changes in areas of the brain that are important for sensory, cognitive, and emotional processing. And I did link the full study and analysis. And it's basically like science is starting to catch up with what a lot of folks who advocate for this type of slowing down practice have been saying for decades, hundreds of years, whatever. Science is starting to catch up, and they've actually done studies where they've hooked up, and looked at brain waves, brain activity. And there's a lot that says, yes, meditation actually does benefit this. And so it's not necessarily that we're here just, advocating for meditation, but that's one of the things. Another piece that I hear a lot is, well, I don't have any money to set aside for savings or for investment. Now, there are folks who are in situations that are so dire that is true.
Absolutely.
And I do not want to negate that, especially, in the work that we do at Forward Motion. I do see that. The majority of the time, what it is that we should change that sentence to, I don't have the amount of money that I think would be effective to start to invest, or to start to save, or to start looking at my retirement. And what I tell people is, I don't care if it's $10 a week. I don't care if it's $15 a month. I don't care what that number is, but you need to do it consistently. Because if you can't save 0.5% of your income for yourself and for your future, when you're making $40,000, $30,000, $20,000 a year, well, $20,000 maybe might be real dire, but if you're making $40,000 or $50,000 a year, and you can't save 0.5% or 1% of your income for yourself now, do you think you're going to be able to do that when you're making $100,000, $200,000 a year? Probably not. Right? Those bad habits that you're building are going to build right into the next stage. And so you have to start where you are and be a good steward, or good manager of your time, your energy, and your money now, because it's not going to be, you're not going to experience any difference later down the road if you don't.
Absolutely. I think there's a couple ways to do that too. Like one thing I was reading, is like it's really good to always kind of think of something that motivates you, because that's going to help you, push you, give you that drive
Mm-hmm.
to get you to the next step. And you gotta, you're gonna want to, obviously you're kind of trying to plan, and you can adjust your plan. So you should like track your progress in anything that you're doing. It's always good to kind of check in with yourself so that you can
Yeah.
see, like, okay, I started here. It may have been small. I may have only been doing my $10 a week, but that I went from doing $0 a week to $10 a week, and now 3 months later I'm going to look back and see how much I've saved. Okay, and that's going to probably motivate you
Mm-hmm.
to want to keep going, and then maybe look at where you can make some adjustments to save a little bit more now.
Yeah.
So just things like that. Even just if your journey is weight loss, it's really easy to get discouraged because of where you're already at.
Mm-hmm.
And you may not want to, and it's not always a scale number. It's a lot of times it's more about measurements and things like that, depending on what your goals are. But
Or how you're feeling.
yeah, how you're
mind
feeling
feel, how
physically,
your body feels,
yeah,
how your
how you
brain
feel you look, how do you feel when you look in the mirror, and
Yeah.
you know what I mean, that self-image. So maybe it's a journal, maybe
Mhm.
it's tracking, every month on this date you're checking, your weight, or you're taking measurements, because if you are being consistent with even the smallest steps, you're gonna start seeing a change and a difference. And
Yep.
that's only gonna motivate you more to keep getting to that goal you're looking for.
And you have to recognize and you have to appreciate those changes.
Yes.
Right? Because like you
Celebrate
said,
them.
yeah, like you said, it's if you're being consistent, you are going to see changes. The question is, though, there are a couple of things, like, are you getting caught up in the hype of someone else's journey?
Yes. Don't compare yourself
Do
to
not
someone else
compare
either.
yourself.
It's great to have a goal, because I'm going to branch off a little bit. It's great to have a goal because you want to, and maybe you're basing that on the people that you're surrounding yourself with. And it's good to surround yourself with people. Amanda says this all the time. Like, you're going to surround yourself with people that are in the same boat as you all the time. And you're not going to try and, surround yourself with people that are doing the things that you want to do or where you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
You're probably not going to get to that
as much or as far as you want to go. Yeah.
Right. But it's all about, where you're at in that taking the time and where you're at in that progress.
Yeah.
And about for you, not for so be motivated by other people, but then identify where you're at and how you're going to make it to the next level, not where somebody else is at. Everybody has different, it's what's the word I'm looking for? Opportunities and
yeah. Everyone has a different
resources and experiences in life that give them different opportunities and put them in different places. So you can't always compare yourself to somebody else. You just have to,
One, and what a lot of times we don't see is what you typically see, and especially talking about like social media. I'm kind of in like the financial world, and there started to be a lot of like financial celebrities, right? You've got like Earn Your Leisure, you've got the Budgetnista, you've got Budget Mom, and if you follow some of these people on IG or Facebook, or you got Rory D something on Twitter and stuff, what you see is the blow up. You see their blow up. But what you're not seeing is someone who did something day in and day out over the course of 5, 10, 12 years, and then got their big break. And now you see them, the Wall Street Trapper is a great example, right? this man, he went to prison. He was in prison for like 10 years. While he was there, he started learning about the stock market. He got out. He started actually investing in and really learning the stock market. Then he started teaching it to others. And then recently, over the past, like, since COVID, over the past couple of years, he's really blown up. But it's like, man, this guy's got almost 1 million followers and he's really blown up. And, I don't know if he's a millionaire or not, but he's got, a lot of money. He's talking to Rick Ross and Mark Cuban and having these conversations. And it's like, what you're seeing is their blow up. You're not seeing the small, smart, consistent action day in and day out over a long length of time. And what we compare ourselves to, you compare your chapter 1 to their chapter 10, and that's not fair to you. Right. Like that's not, and that's not going to motivate you. You got to compare. There's a saying where it's like, there's a you of the past that wanted to be where you are today. And you have to be able to look back and realize there's a past me, there's a me of the past that is like, man, check out where you are, right? Like, I'm not necessarily where I want to be ultimately, right? But
look at how far you've come.
10 years ago, me would look at me today and be like, man, like, all right, and
sorry.
No.
We were just talking about that the other day with even stuff as simple as how you're able to financially and or just emotionally react in like a stressful situation or a situation that gives you a hiccup, like your car battery going out, your flat tire on the side of the road.
Yeah.
Getting my car hit at the airport, and
a ding in your car, like that would have been like like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. So
how am I going to figure this out? Yeah.
Yep. I mean, there would have been a lot of more tears, anger, and a issue of financial issue of how I was going to eat, how I was even going to afford to get it taken care of had this been me 10 years ago.
Yep.
So you have to take those, and I'm definitely not where I want to be financially. I am just starting this journey with Forward Motion and everybody else here. I am just starting to get a good handle of my finances and goals on where I want to be. And I am almost 35. So you just have to look at where you've come, but I've come a long way from there, Yep. So yeah,
Yep.
I think.
Yeah. It's like, I actually made a TikTok because I was like I was, called it having a financial aha moment, because I was at Costco and my battery died literally while I was in the line waiting in this, if you get gas at Costco, that like that line can get long, and I'm like in the line and I'm waiting for my turn. I'm like 5 cars back from the pump. And, my car has that thing where if you press on the brake, the engine shuts off, to save gas and then turns back on. I guess my battery had been low and my engine did the shut off thing, and then it didn't have enough power to turn back on. So now my battery's dead. I'm sitting in the Costco parking lot and I'm like, seriously? Okay. But then I sat back and I recognized that, like, this is an inconvenience. This isn't a life-ruining, month-ruining financial situation. Like, this isn't, it's an inconvenience. Like, I really wanted to take my new shoes home, and I finally did something nice for myself, bought myself some new shoes, and now I'm sitting in a Costco waiting for an Uber. Like, I was able to call an Uber to pick me up. Like, I remember in my Cadillac, I ran out of gas on the freeway, on this where the 10 turns into the 60 going east. I was on the freeway right behind the Tempe Butte. So like where you have the Angel Stadium, the Tempe Butte, where the hotel is. I ran out of gas right there. And I literally had to get out of my Cadillac, climb that mountain.
Gosh.
Climb back down the mountain and walk to the house in the cul-de-sac on 48th Street and Rozier to get help, to get gas, to go to get like a gallon of gas to go get driven. It was a disaster,
Oh
right?
my gosh.
I haven't thought about that for a while, but like there was no way that I could have afforded to get, a taxi at the time, or, I didn't have to take the bus. And so really just kind of sitting back, and I also love the saying of the time will pass anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you say I'm going to start this thing, okay, well, in 6 months, I'm not going to be at my goal. And it's like, yeah, but 6 months of your life will have passed and you'll be either 6 months closer to your goal, or you'll be right where you were when you decided not to start.
Mm-hmm.
The time will pass anyway. And man,
Yeah.
I think that's one that just
Yep.
really, really sits with me.
Yep, because that's exactly right. It's the time's going to go by, and what what are you going to be able to say that you did or didn't do to help yourself?
So if you no, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's it. I was just going to say, I mean, if we're not going to help ourselves, who is?
Who is?
Yeah.
Right. And so when you think about starting where you are, with what you have, and just doing what you can, it really, really comes down to that, because, I look personally at like where my investment portfolio is today. And I always remember, and you guys who listen consistently, you'll probably hear me drop this a few times, because I always remember that one stock, one single share for $45 that I bought. And it was terrifying, right? And I still remember, starting to saying, you know what, I'm going to start having, I think it was like $25 from each check taken and put into this savings account. And I'm just going to start doing that. And okay, so that's $50 a month. No big deal. Like, that's not going to save my life. But then what ended up happening was I had that habit. And so then when I was able to, I was like, oh, instead of 25 a check, I'm actually going to raise that to 100 a check. I'm in a position that I can do that, right?
This podcast has been brought to you by Forward Motion. Our mission is to create generational prosperity one family at a time. Visit us at forwardmotionaz.org or at forwardmotionaz on Instagram. Our YouTube channel is Moving Forward One Family at a Time. Thank you for listening.
Not have the money to take the course, but have you gone and checked and see, are there any free courses on, what is it, like Udemy or
I wrote down
Coursera?
I mean, even there's community centers in your areas that are sometimes either offering free to low cost a lot of things, since everything went to Zoom with COVID. A lot of those are like discounted, and you can do them right from the comfort of your own home.
Yep.
There's so many different resources when it comes to not having the money to like learn a skill or do something, providing like Forward Motion offers scholarships for
We've got your Move Forward.
workshops.
We've got our Move Forward conference coming up on
Right.
April 30th. Right. The Move Forward conference is the first of its kind. We have experts in financial education, home buying, and real estate, executive coaching, wealth building through insurance. So like life insurance, right? Rich families have been using life insurance to build wealth for decades, and it's actually one of the biggest kept or best kept secrets in wealth. We have a nutrition coach coming in from Fuel Nutrition. We've got just a lot of great resources. It's a full day event. The reason that I started this event was because in my experience, in my career, and in my life, I've had access to through my career, I had access to a lot of coaching and conferences where like-minded people come together and have workshops and learn things and get an opportunity to talk to one another and ask questions and things like that. And I recognized that these experiences and things that I'm having access to are missing from the community. And unless you have, whether it's a lot of money or an organization that is willing to spend $1,000 or $5,000 or, $500 to send you to these things, you miss out on them. And it's an opportunity that that people who really need it aren't getting, but rich folks are getting a lot of, and people who are in really high jobs in their careers are getting a lot of. And so that's what the Move Forward conference is. We'll tag all of the information for the conference in the notes here, but I made the cost $57, right? And we have scholarships available for those who need it. But we have a lot of highbrow experts coming in to share their experience and knowledge in their fields. And they're doing this because they believe in the mission, and they believe in what is needed in society. And so that's a way to start where you are and really gain the information and knowledge in order to take things to the next step. And
great. I can't wait for it.
Yeah, it's gonna be a really really great experience. So
but yeah,
so in the end, what we're basically talking about right now is setting up the good habits when you think about setting up good habits now, because if you procrastinate until the time you think you're going to be in a better position to do the thing, when you are in that better position, you're probably not going to do the thing because it's not a habit that you have already.
Yep. It takes, I've read on average on BackRub that it takes 66 days to make a new habit. So that might sound like a long time. It's not that long, but also know that you have to give yourself time. Yeah. You can't, that's the other thing here. Don't rush it. Don't expect it to happen overnight. That's part of the whole, starting where you're at. And give yourself.
That's such an important note that you just made, Sarah. It's not going to happen overnight. Nothing happens overnight. And in the world that we live in an informational a huge information society, right? Everything's at our fingertips. 3 or 4 times in the show, Sarah said something that sparked my mind, and I just went and searched it. And I think, Sarah, you did the same thing a couple times, right? So we live in this world where there's so much information at our fingertips, and we're constantly seeing everyone else's best moments, because that's what's being shared. People share their best moments. They share the most exciting things. They share the come ups. They share, the blow up, the glow up. That's what they share.
They share the happy times. No one's going to post about the fight they just had with their spouse or their family. No one's going to post about how they just didn't get the promotion they were going to,
People aren't posting about the contract that they lost. Right. They're posting about and
it's happening.
It's happening. No one's posting about the 10 contracts they didn't get on the path. They're posting about the one that they did. Right. It's
just applaud each other instead of comparing yourself or feeling jealous, and use that as motivation if that's what motivates you, but that's one of the biggest things. And I'm guilty of it at times myself.
We all are.
Stop comparing yourself to others. It's not going to get you any further in your journey.
It's not going to help you mentally, emotionally.
No.
Yeah. It's so true. I think, we're all guilty of it. I'm guilty of it. Right. I see things where it's like, man, I wish I had, this huge in like real estate portfolio. And it's like, okay, well, you have to start somewhere, and then you have to do things over and over and over in order to get there. No one starts with 100 doors. And folks who do start with 100 doors probably had a really big leg up from a generational wealth standpoint, where they weren't starting from the bottom or starting from scratch, right? And so that's the other piece that you have to think of. One of the things that we say at Forward Motion is the best time to move forward is right now. And when you're creating generational wealth, when you're creating generational prosperity, and you're the starting point, you're the catalyst, you have to remember that you don't have, generations of decisions behind you that have you in a position where you can just snap your fingers and make, the next great move. Like, if you're the catalyst, if you're the starting point, it's going to be hard, right? It's going to be tough. There are going to be times when it's not going to be fun, exciting. You're going to, like, I don't know about you, but like, I'm gonna cry, right? Like, you're going to be sad. You're going to miss out on going on trips or doing certain things that you want
buying
to
something
do.
you want,
buying something that you want. Yeah.
Or, you're going to be eating at home a lot more than going out to eat, maybe, things like that. Using your strengths. So like, maybe you don't have money behind you. Maybe that's not what you have as a resource, but you've got drive and you've got motivation, and sometimes we discredit our life skills from, navigating just through hard times and where we've come, and looking at those and seeing how you can utilize that, or how you can market that an advantage. Yeah. It's not always going to be money, but you might be really, really good at talking. You might be very motivational. You might be really good at saving already. You might be really good at grinding, just working really hard, for people who don't know what grinding means.
In vocabulary word of the day, grinding. We might have just shown our age.
Oh man.
If you didn't get that, you're probably a Gen Zer or Gen Xer. Are we in Gen Z now? X, Z,
think
Gen Y, Z.
Z's at the end, right?
Z's at the end.
I think that's where we're at. I don't know. Does that mean we start over?
I know. What happens next?
This is going to take us on another.
Yeah.
We could make this an hour-long more podcast.
That's true.
In the next episode.
Next episode.
The 90s are making a comeback.
Episode. Yeah. Name that song. Name that tune. Next episode. So.
Oh.
And it's the little things, right? Like, I always say, you may not have, you may want to go back and get your degree, and you may not have you may not be in a position to do it. Maybe you're maxed out on Pell Grants. Maybe you're in a place where it's like, okay, I can't, it's not in my budget right now. I need to figure out how to get there. But like, there are websites like edx.org, edx.org, where you can like take courses from Harvard, Berkeley, University of Texas system, Boston University, University of Maryland, MIT. You can take courses from these. Now, you're not going to get a degree for it because you're not technically enrolled, but that doesn't mean you're not gaining the knowledge.
Yeah.
Right. And we're in a point in our society where, I mean, people like Elon Musk, love him or hate him, he's been a big outspoken person about our current school system, our current educational system. And there are a lot of businesses, entrepreneurs, CEOs, leaders of organizations that are just not putting as much stock in your degree as your experience and as your knowledge, and not at all saying that degrees are not useful or important, but we're talking today about starting where you are. And some education is better than no education, and
some life experience is just as transferable as education. So it's just knowing
Yeah,
Tap
because
into
it's
new
like
businesses, yeah.
there are just I mean I'm just like, oh, like Six Sigma, analyze, improve, control. There's a Six Sigma course. I mean, this Six Sigma is a way of analyzing, and it's used in running businesses in all kinds of areas, especially in like analysis and productivity departments in companies. It's like you can take a free Six Sigma course, you can take a free introductory to programming course, analyzing data with Excel from IBM, Berkeley, the foundations of happiness at work. That goes into like HR, right? Marketing management. They're all, I'm just looking through some of these courses here. Exercising leadership, foundational principles, strategies for online teaching and learning. And these are all courses that are put together by accredited universities, that if you have the want to learn this and you say, you know what, I'm going to go and I'm going to do this and I'm going to learn it. And then I'm going to be able to talk about it whether it's you're in your entrepreneurial journey, whether you're going and looking at getting a promotion at work or moving into a new role. You can take these, and these are now marketable skills that you can share, like, hey, I know this now, right? So we're not sponsored by this website or this tool at all, but it's things like this, right? Coursera, the Google has created their Google certificate program, and I think those Google certificates, if I remember correctly, they are the Google certificate program they have in project management, user experience design, and IT support, data analytics, and Android development. And the pricing on these is like $300 or something like that. And then they supposedly have a network where they help you get into these roles that are in higher paid type roles by having this certificate. And so it's about learning these different things and understanding what is it that I can do from where I am today in order to move closer to where I want to be, not all or nothing, right? You talked about it's not an all or nothing game, right? Exactly. It's not a zero sum game. There's a lot that you can do from where you are, and the way to get there is to start where you are, work with what you have, and do what you can.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. Wow, this is a really, really good, great topic. I love, the ideas that go behind just starting. And it's like you said, we'll add that Eleanor Roosevelt.
I'm pretty sure it's the way to begin is to begin. The other thing is just a few more things that I was reading is imagine your future, imagine it, because not only are you just, but you want like planning for it, but you want to imagine what you're planning for. That'll help you kind of get
visualization.
Visualization is huge. Reward yourself when you've made some small accomplishments, don't, again, and that kind of goes along with like the all or nothing. And it's not, oh, I'm on a diet now, I can never have anything sweet. Don't do that again. To yourself. No, like, all right, I made it to this goal, and
if you could never have anything sweet again in your life, you'd probably like
me personally.
Yeah, you personally.
Oh, I have issues. We have a problem. Yeah, I'm a sweet tooth for sure. And then just again, be patient with yourself and your progress in your journey. Yeah. Give yourself, grace. Absolutely. This was a great conversation though.
And also, like, I love the idea of rewarding yourself, and think about what your reward's going to be and set milestones for yourself so you have something that you're working towards. But don't make if you're saving, if your goal is to save money and get to a certain point, don't make your reward like
I'm gonna buy a new boat.
vacation, right? Or a boat.
It's like, okay, I've saved $300. I'm gonna go reward myself with a new shirt at the store this, or
Yeah.
something reasonable.
Something reasonable.
As long as
Make
your
it a
shirt
smart goal.
isn't like a $300 shirt.
Yeah. I've saved $300. My reward is to spend $350. Doll hairs. Like, be reasonable and be smart about it, and make milestones. Like, that's a big deal, right? Like, if you have a big outlandish goal out here, what are some smaller steps along the way, right? Let's do steps. We'll go this way instead of going this way, because most steps go down.
Ascend or
descending. But what are some small milestones along the way that you can, like, for me, a great reward might be just going for a 2-hour drive. Like, that's a big reward for me, right? Like, I'm gonna have to, like, take time to myself, by myself. I'm gonna go and drive out to the river, just get out and walk along the riverbank for a while, see some
Grounded,
animals, right?
me.
Yeah, like, do some grounding, right? But think about who you are and what your rewards can be along the way.
Your motivation.
Yeah, what's going to keep you energized and motivated along the way? That's definitely something that's super, super important.
Yeah, love it,
man. Well, this has been really fun. So keep in mind that you can connect with Forward Motion at Forward Motion AZ on Facebook and on Instagram. Our YouTube channel, you may have found this on YouTube. If you found it on Spotify or Pandora or Stitcher or something like that, our YouTube channel where you can watch the podcast is Moving Forward, One Family at a Time on YouTube. You can get merchandise on our bonfire store and also on our Facebook page. And the proceeds for the merchandise does go to back to Forward Motion in the form of donations through Bonfire. You can donate. We are a nonprofit 501c3 nonprofit organization. You can donate at forwardmotionaz.org/donate. I am Money Manda, so money.manda on TikTok. And we'll have in our show notes some of the resources that we talked about today. Outside of that, thank you for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed the episode. Please rate, give us some stars on Google Podcasts, on subscribe on Spotify, on Google Podcasts, on different places. Rate the show. It helps us to continue to bring the show to you and to reach more folks. Outside of that, thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks for being here. See you guys next time.
Bye.